friends. Listen again to our legend of the Bionicle.
Howdy folks, how are y'all doing? My name is Cub, and I will be your host for BIONICOMM Episode 3, recorded on September the 9th, 2014. Welcome, gathered friends, welcome to BIONICOMM, the Bionicle Community Podcast. My name is Cub, as you probably heard in the introduction. I should probably not have to repeat it, but welcome to the show. I've got quite a bit to talk about. You may have noticed there wasn't an episode for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, maybe? I seem to have lost track of time there. But I've been waiting for information to build up, and actually, huge information drop. I believe it was yesterday. Big deals going on in the hood to talk about with Bionicle. In fact, Bionicle is all but confirmed now, thanks to a little leak we had on the LEGO website, which we'll be talking about in news, as well as some other information, like some leaks from X06, my exploits in Bionicle, and a talkback session with you folks. And yeah, let's kick things off with news. This news comes directly from BZ Power user Adrian. And he says, when LEGO started building its website for next year, they didn't consider me and my masterful skills of educated URLs guessing. So what this guy did was he went to, he went to Lego.com and began throwing in different URL titles, sort of, and just searching through random pages until he came across something very interesting, deep in the heart of the LEGO website. And it's a picture of a Bionicle thing. Basically what he found was a Portal franchise card is what the LEGO server labels it as. And I'm looking at it right now, not on some like Imgur post. I'm looking at it on cache.lego.com. So this is in the heart of their servers. You can link to it. I'll have a link in the description. They have it labeled on their website as a franchise card. And so it's a mask, and you can look at it yourself. Again, links in the description. If you're listening on iTunes, you can find the links there as well. It's a mask. It looks similar to the mask we had in the promotional leaks we had. I think we talked about them in episode 1. Except for it's a bit more refined. It almost looks like a mask crown hybrid. And it's got some blue lights swirling around it. It's really cool. And this will be used eventually when Bionicle is released on the products page. So if you go to lego.com and you click on products, it'll take you over to a portal page where they have these little cards with all of the different LEGO sets and genres and themes. And so, for instance, there's one for City, there's one for Star Wars, it's got Yoda on it, it's got one for the Lego movie. And this is a card that would go on that page. It looks just like all the other cards, except for it's Bionicle, and it even has the original Bionicle sort of logo across the top. So it's very exciting, and this is extremely legit. So the thing with the leaked pictures before is why they did look very convincing. They weren't actually from LEGO. This is on the LEGO servers. This is something that LEGO has developed. It's not old, right? That's what I first thought before I'd seen it, and I'd read through it. I just saw that someone had found something on the servers. I thought maybe it was a remnant of a Bionicle age long past, but no. This is new. This is not a promotional item we've ever seen before. And if you ask me, it is definitely a sign of good things to come, especially when you consider how much it looks like the mask in the leaked sort of box images we saw recently. It looks like the mask that Tahu was reaching for. So that's very cool, very exciting. Big thumbs up to the fellow who found that over on BZ Power, Adrian. Thank you so much for that. That's awesome. And the talkback session, if you go to bzpower.com and look at it, is hysterical. There's so many people, I guess holdouts, who are now cheering and praising the return of Bionicle. And there's a lot of speculation over what the mask could be. I see half of the posts are saying, oh my gosh, it looks just like the Mask of Creation. And the other half is going, oh my gosh, it looks nothing like the Mask of Creation. I can't say one way or the other. I don't have a description of that mask on hand. But in any case, it looks really cool. And if you're looking at it right now, which you should be, again, link in the description. There's no reason you shouldn't be looking at this. And that is a link to the LEGO server where you can find this. That's so cool, too. Assuming it's still up there. If not, I'll have an alternate source link. But I don't think LEGO will take this down. Just because why at this point. If you look at it, it looks very interesting. It looks almost tribal, which is really cool for me, because you guys remember in the last episode, I almost said last week, but whenever it was, in episode 2, I talked about what I wanted for the story, and I did a very poor job of it. Listening to it in the editing phase, I was like, oh goodness me, this sounds so jumbled, and I just can't express what I really want from the story. What I want is a continuation of the story with a reboot of the feel and the atmosphere, right? So I would like it to take place in the very distant future on a bare magma that feels and looks like the original Matanui, with sort of the tribal-esque theme going on there. I think that would be really awesome, and this mask definitely looks like it's harking back to that sort of feel. So we can hope. It could still be a reboot. It could be a complete reboot, in which case I would still be happy because Bionicle, but it looks really awesome. You guys really need to check that out. I'm very excited about it. So if we move on to our second bit of news here, we have a refined release date from X06. So you'll remember we talked about him either in the first or second episode. He is a very reliable source of leaks, and has been in the past, and will probably continue to be in the future. And he has leaked some very interesting information about a release date, commercials, and combo sets, as well as some names. Now, unfortunately, the post is in French, and I don't read French well, but thankfully, Liwan over on Eurobricks has given us what I assume to be a very good translation. Now, I did translate the original French post, which is on bionifigs.com, a French Bionicle fan site. I translated it with Google Translate, and it's not perfect, but reading through it, I can definitely sort of understand it. But Liwan has given us a much better translation, which I will be reading to you guys right now. Some news, guys. The release date should actually be January, so for the lucky ones who have the luck to get them earlier, you might get Bionicle sets for Christmas. I don't know how it will work, but there will still be combos. There will be commercials for Stone Protector and Gali, and maybe the whole wave theme other characters. I can't imagine there won't be any promotional media that won't focus on Tahu. He's the main character. But these two will definitely have their own commercial. My source is the same as... Oh, I'm sorry, that was from Liwan. That last bit was just Liwan sourcing back to X06. So that's some pretty big information there. So January makes a lot of sense, and of course, for those of us who are lucky to get them around Christmas, I have been lucky like that in the past. I wouldn't be surprised if come December we have the smaller Defender or Protector sets, as they should probably be known, and we'll announce that here in a second. I'll talk about that. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw those in December. I know in December 2004, I got the Rahaga before they were released in 2005, and in December 2005, I got the Voyanui Matorn before they came out in 2006, so that's not a surprise. And then January makes sense again. That's dead center of winter 2015, which is when we expected these sets to be released, so thank you for that information. Now, X06 actually has two parts to his post on Bionifigs. Liwan has only translated the first part, and if he did translate the second part, I can't find it on Eurobricks. So we're going to be going off of the really rough Google translation here, and I'm just going to be kind of pulling out the tidbits, or not the tidbits, the most important information. If you want to, I can link to both of these in the description. You can go down there and check them out yourself. But again, using Google Translate, X06 says, this only applies to France, since we still don't have the names of the new Bionicles. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm already messing this up. Whenever Google Translate, it'll translate the words, but it can't reorder the sentence to make it make sense, because, of course, all languages, they don't have the same flow of words, like where different things would be placed. Basically, what this says is that Protectors is going to be the name for the smaller sets, not Defenders. At least in French here is what he's saying. I think it'll probably be the same in English and other languages. That makes a lot more sense. And instead of Toa, we will have Masters. And Liwa, interestingly, is Master of Jungle instead of Air, which doesn't bother me. I do wish we still had an Air Master, or Toa, whatever you choose to call them. But when I first got into Bionicle, before I ever found out anything about the story, which was way back in 2003, I assumed Liwa was the Master of the Jungle anyway. So I'm okay with that. Although, you know what? Technically, if Gali can control water, she could control the jungle as well by just manipulating the water inside plants, like the swamp benders did in Avatar: The Last Airbender. But whatever, we can have a Master of the Jungle, and that is okay by me. And then, of course, all the other sets are the same. Bohatu Master of Stone, Gali Master of Water, Tahu Master of Fire, etc., etc., and the Lord of Spiders instead of the Lord of Skull Spiders, which is upsetting, because Lord of Skull Spiders was a nifty name. but Lord of Spiders works as well, I guess. Now, if we go back to that first bit of information, and we'll switch back to the Lee Wan translated version, it says here that we're going to get a commercial for the Stone Protector and Golly. Now, it doesn't specifically say whether or not that's an individual commercial for each, so a commercial for Stone Protector and a commercial for Golly, or if they're both going to be in the same commercial. But here are a couple of thoughts. Now, normally when we get two different types of sets in a commercial, they're going to be fighting each other. So maybe the Stone Protector will be fighting Golly if they're in the commercial together. It's possible that maybe the Protectors are the bad guys. I'm not sure how that would work story-wise, but just a speculation. Or it could be like in 2008, where we had the Matoran and the Toa battling against the Makuta in those promos. We could have a very similar thing here, where we have a Stone Protector and Golly battling against spiders together, which would make a lot more sense considering in the promotional box covers that we've seen so far, everyone was fighting spiders. So I think that the spiders are probably bad guys. And they could also have individual commercials. Maybe the Stone Protector will be sort of heading up a Protector commercial, and then it might be possible that all of the Toa, or I'm sorry, the Element Masters, I guess, will each get their own sort of promotional commercial like we had way back in 01, although hopefully higher quality and better sound effects. If you guys go back and watch those, they were definitely great for the time. We'll leave it at that. But so that's our information there. So thank you so much for Lee Wan for that translation, and thank you so much to X06 for that information. You continue to be an awesome source of leaks for us. Now, our third bit of news is not actually news. It has mostly to do with a question I received. Let me get it over here on the screen so I can actually read it. It is from Alex Garrett, who says, and this is a comment on my YouTube channel from the last episode. He says, "This might not be relevant, Cub, but how much do you think these sets will cost? I've been seeing people talk about saving $200 or so." And that is an excellent question there, Mr. Garrett. And I can't actually answer it because I don't know, but recently, the Three Virtues podcast, and I'll have a link to this episode in the description as well, had made a video talking about how someone leaked the set prices for New Zealand, and that after adjusting for currency and then adjusting for New Zealand inflation, the sets came out to roughly $10.99, except for Golly, which came out at around $20, which is a bit strange. But I tried following their links to the different articles, and they wouldn't work for me for whatever reason, so you can go back and listen to that episode yourself. I believe that that makes sense. $10.99 per set is what we've seen in the past, and it makes perfect sense. However, or around that price, maybe more or less. One thing I don't understand is why Golly would cost more. And I have a theory. As you guys know, if you've been on BZ Power for any amount of time, Bionicle is extremely sexist, and now LEGO is making a super awesome Golly set to make up for it. Alright, yeah, there's my BZ Power burn. Really, guys? Really? You're going to talk about serious issues of the world in terms of child's play toy? Whatever. Moving on. That pretty much sums up the news for this episode, and also that was the only bash session we're going to have. I will not bash anyone else or be rude. We're going to continue with my exploits in Bionicle. So you guys have not written in any fun Bionicle stories that have happened to you recently. If you would like to, you can email them to me or check my website, cubsplace.net, and maybe I'll have a Bionicon section added where you can submit those. Or, of course, you can leave them in the comments, but let me tell you about what happened to me in terms of Bionicle this week. I had something very exciting happen. So, as you guys know, I've been trying to complete my original Wave 1 Bionicle collection by getting all of the sets released from 01 to 2008. I'm not all that anxious to get all the 2009 sets, but maybe after I get all of the previous ones, I'll go back and search for them. But I need to get a Makuta, and I needed to get a new Takanuva. Now, I have a complete Takanuva and a complete Takanuva-Makuta combo set, whatever it's called. I forget. Takanakuta-Nuva. Makuta-Nu... I don't remember. Something like that. But because of that, that means I don't have a simple, basic Makuta or the Takanuva speeder bike, whose name escapes me. I know it has a proper title. We're going to call it a speeder bike for now. I know. So I went online and I bought a couple of sets. It was an incomplete Makuta and an incomplete speeder bike. And I was hoping that I could just kind of get on eBay and find a bag of Bionicle parts that would have the pieces I needed. So I started looking around and I found a listing for what was essentially a box full of Bionicle parts, as well as some what appeared to be empty canisters sort of lined up behind the parts. And I saw some of the pieces I needed, With the current bid, which was no one else had bid, but with the current bid and shipping, it would come out to around $30. And I was like, you know what? For all those parts, might be worth it. So I went ahead and I made the bid, got the set for got the whole box for a little under $30. I was the only person to bid on it. And a few days later, it came in the mail. I had it shipped to my parents' house because I don't like having things shipped to my apartment because I'm at work all day. But I went over to my parents' house, and I'm 21 years old. I'm sitting on the floor with my 14-year-old brother, cutting into a box of Bionicle parts like we're both 5 years old, and it's Christmas Day, and it was so exciting. I was so pumped up. I'm like, yes, it's Bionicles. I'm so excited. I'm sorry, I've had sugar. So I cut open the box, and I take out the big bag of parts, and I'm like, oh, man, this is fantastic. Big bag of parts. And then my brother picks up a canister, and he opens it up, and he goes, whoa, Liwa. I was like, what? And I looked up, and sure enough, Liwa Nuva is in the canister. I was like, oh, snap. And so we fish out a couple of more, and it turns out all the Toa Nuva canisters, there's all 6 of them, and they all have Toa Nuva in them. It's like, holy crud, that's incredible. And then it happened. I looked down, and I saw a Tahu Mata, and I was like, I picked out the canister, and for those of you who never had the canister sets before, the way they worked was they were the basic canisters, but then they had like a plastic skin wrapped around them, and you could rotate it to reveal different things on the inside of the canister. But it was kind of pushed up, so I couldn't see the seals. And I was like, if I pull this down and this set is sealed, in the condition it's in right now, this is going to be the greatest Bionicle-related day of my life. So I slowly pulled it down, and the seals were broken, so it was not sealed, and I was very upset. But I opened it up, and sure enough, right on top of there was Vakama, sort of folded up on top of Tahu's head. I fished them both out, and at the end of the haul, it turns out I now have all the Toa Nuva, all the Toa Mata, all the Matoran, and some Nui Rama, the Manas bodies, not the complete sets, unfortunately, but the bodies and the controllers, and a ton of other various complete sets and parts and pieces and masks. I sat back and I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. It would be so much better if I didn't already have all of these. So now I have copies of a bunch of sets I already have. Not sure what I'm going to do with them. I might hold on to them because I like to hoard things, or I may give some of them away here on the channel. That could be cool. So you guys stay tuned for that in the future. We'll see. I do know that I have a second Takanuva that I want to give away. And as it turns out, I did find most of the pieces I needed to complete the incomplete Makuta and speeder bike, although I haven't done it yet. So that's my big exploit in Bionicle. It was a lot of fun. Oh, actually, there was a second thing that happened, and it's not so much to do with Bionicle as sort of what happened when I tried to do something related to Bionicle. That doesn't make any sense, but I have Bionicle comic books. There's a few that I really like that I kind of like to display, and for the longest time, I've had them. If you go to Hobby Lobby, you can buy these sort of display. I'm not even sure what they're called, but they're basically, it's a cardboard backing, a glass pane, and then there's these little clasps on the sides that kind of hold it in place. It's very minimalist. It basically just displays the image that's inside of it without a frame or anything. I really liked them. The problem is I've been using just a plain black background for them, and I decided I wanted to get more color, because if you come into my apartment, everything is very dark and drab. I one time had a friend make a joke that the brightest thing in my apartment, and actually it wasn't a joke, it was honest, the brightest, most colorful thing in the apartment was an orange tag on my AC in it, which you can probably hear rumbling away behind me. And I was like, well, we can probably color it up a bit. If you guys have ever been to my Cub Games channel, you know it's full of bright colors. I didn't used to like bright colors. I used to prefer darker tones, but I find now that I really like them. They're really energetic, and they kind of just help me get things done. I don't know what it is, but bright colors are great, and I decided to put bright colors behind the comic books. So what you're probably thinking is, all right, you got some bright paper or some bright like plastic or something to put behind there, some bright colored cardstock, and that would have been brilliant. But that's not what I did at first. The first thing I did was try spray paint, and so I bought a can of spray paint. First off, kids, let me go ahead and explain this right now. You should never spray paint in an enclosed area. The adults listening, you'll know this. Teens, you'll know this. Just in case there's any children listening, just want to make this clear, this is a bad idea. But I decided, since I was going to be gone all day, if I spray painted in the morning and then I left for work and I came back 12 hours later, any of the fumes would have probably been blown out of my apartment. So I put the backings of these frames, I guess. I don't really know what else to call them. I put them into a box so there wouldn't be any overspray on the floor. I sprayed them down really good, really thick. It actually looked okay. It didn't look as nice as I had hoped. And then I left, and I came back, and it turns out, no, fumes don't just run out of the AC unit during the day. And I almost was not able to spend the night here, but I was able to get the windows open and the fans going and get the fumes out, and I was like, okay. And then as it turned out, the paint didn't look that good anyway, so here just last night, actually, I got some bright-colored cardstock from my mom's house because she wasn't using it. And I didn't just go in there and steal it, right? I didn't just, like, under the cover of darkness, sneak through a window and steal some cardstock. I called and asked her, and she had some. So I got some bright oranges and greens and yellows and blue to match the Cubs Place logo, because I love the color spectrum used in the not the Cubs Place, but the Cub Games logo. I love it. And so I put them in the frames kind of behind the comic books, and it looks awesome. Very happy with it. But before that, after the spray paint, sort of in this in-between time, strange things began to happen in my apartment. First off, my AC unit started acting very, very weird. It would turn itself up randomly. I'd just be sitting here and all of a sudden, beep. I'd turn around like, what? Beep, 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 beep. And it would go from 75 to like 90. And I'd be trying to turn it back down, and we'd be in this fight. And then I noticed all of my computers were running kind of slow. And it wasn't for another few days. Not slow, I'm sorry. The computers were running fine. They were running hot. And after a few days, I finally figured out what it was. I was walking by my AC unit, and I caught something orange. And that's when I realized somehow, and I don't even understand how this is possible, but overspray from trying to spray paint inside that box somehow lifted into the air and was brought all across my apartment. And it completely jacked up the filter on the AC unit. It was completely orange, stuffed full of like orange dust from the overspray. The liquid cooler on my backup computer was completely orange, as well as my external hard drive array. Filters were completely orange. Thankfully, my gaming rig had been turned off the whole time. But so I had to go buy compressed air, which was a whole entirely different adventure at Office Depot. I have a bunch of friends who work at Office Depot. It's just fun when you have people that work places. Anyway, what was I saying? Completely ran off topic. Right. So I got compressed air and a toothbrush. I had to clean out the filter on the AC unit. I did that with a rag because it was thankfully very easy to clean. I had to take the radiators out of my computer, scrub them clean with some compressed air, and then not scrub them, spray them off with compressed air, and then lightly kind of dust them off with a toothpick. Anyway, I ultimately got everything completely cleaned up, and it's all great now. But what we've learned is don't use spray paint in enclosed environments. The fumes, if the fumes don't get you, the ridiculous amount of overspray dust that clogs everything in its path will. So there you go. So with my exploits out of the way, let's do talk back, where we're going to talk back not talk back, right? We're not going to talk back to anyone, but we're going to talk about some things that you guys have sent me. So first off, we've got the Irrational Rock has sent me an email asking me basically, do I have or have I considered setting up a forum for the podcast? And the answer is no, I have not, but we might be doing something on my website for that, as I've said earlier in this episode. I'm thinking about creating a submission area. I don't really want to create a forum because I think there's already plenty of those. There is BZ Power, and provided you can get past all of the quirks that it suffers from, it's a great website. There's Eurobricks, not really Bionicle specific, and then there's also the TTZ or the TTZ podcast, the Three Virtues. They have a V, not Z. That's what I was saying wrong. I couldn't figure out why it didn't sound right. TTV podcast has a great forum that you can go check out. I think you know what? You never know. We might do something with that in the future, but I think for right now, there's plenty of other options out there. And but thank you for that question there, Irrational Rock. It was not irrational in any way. Mesrec Productions left a rather lengthy comment. Let's read it. Personally, I'm hoping 2 to 3 years after Bionicle's 2015 return, we get new TOA. One really big wish I have is for the new TOA to have new elements, besides the original 6 we are already used to. Maybe have some TOA of lights, shadow, iron, lightning, plasma. If Lewa is taking up a plant life, bring back air. And maybe even have more female characters in the TOA team. I think keeping the same TOA every year would get boring, sort of like what they're doing with, and then it just kind of fades off, but I assume he was going to say Hero Factory. And I hear where you're coming from there, Mesrec Productions. Mesrec. That name sounds very familiar. Why does that sound familiar? Anyway, in the last episode, episode 2, which is where he left this comment, I did say that I would like to have the same TOA stick around for a while, but I agree, after reading your comment and thinking it over, that would get pretty old after a while. I think what they could do, though, instead of just phasing out characters and bringing in new ones, they could just kind of introduce new characters. There seems to be this myth that children can't keep track of complicated storylines, but if you look at one of LEGO's biggest sets is Star Wars. If you look at the Star Wars world, it's pretty complicated, and I'm not talking expanded universe. I'm talking, if you just look at the Clone Wars, it's extremely basic for the average person, but there are extremely young fans who are able to follow it very easily. I don't think that young LEGO fans would get that confused if we had maybe a couple of different Toa teams and new characters introduced every so often. Omega Tahu, famous for being Omega Tahu, left a comment and said, "So, no episode 3?" And obviously, there is an episode 3. Hi, you're listening to it. Nice to see you, Omega Tahu. 31-61 Beats, who's got a pretty cool name, said, "This might be a reboot for the beginning, then kick off like a storm." Not sure what that means, but it sounds cool. Nate said, "The thing with the adaptive armor makes your new Bionicle sound exactly like the Hero Factory story, and that's not a good thing." This again goes back to the last episode where I said instead of having whole new sets, we can just have the same characters and then their adaptive armor, which they already have. They got that in the 2008 storyline. Just have that change for the different environments. And while I can't really badmouth Hero Factory, I know I never got personally very into it, I can't really say that it would be bad to have that particular element. I think it would be nice to have, because it's sort of difficult to continuously change a character. You can't just say, this year it's the Toa. This year it's the Toa after they've experienced energized protodermis. This year it's the Toa after they've been injected with Viscerac venom. You can't just continue, or, you know, this year it's the Toa after they've fallen into some water and been mutated. That's gonna be tricky, I think, to continue, especially for me, because I don't really like the idea of the Toa looking like they did in 2008 constantly. I would rather than be an adaptive armor where they have a normal form, where they look like the Toa Nuva, preferably, or maybe the Toa Mata, and then it just changes on top of that to whatever environment they're in, but then it can also change back. So if we have a year where they look horrible, you know it's okay. Once they go home, they'll look normal. But I don't know. I guess that's up in the air. We'll see what you guys think about that. Irrational Rock says the one issue with having the serials not containing a clear and defined end is that the community will take matters into their own hands and make their own endings. And then he goes on to give an example, to which he says it's a process he would not be looking forward to. And that's, again, in relation to me hoping for a continuation. And in the last episode I said, I'm not really picky on whether or not they pick up the serials. If it's a continuation and it's set distant into the future, I don't really care how it all ended up. It's obvious they all survived and they all made it back to Barra Magma. That's all I really care about. You do pose an interesting point, though. I think a lot of community members, there might even be a BZ Power competition for it, to who can come up with the best ending to these serials. I guess I wouldn't be against Greg wrapping up the serials. Don't get me wrong. If maybe we just had really quick wrap-ups. But I still don't think it's necessary, and I still don't really care one way or the other. The idea of the fans filling in the blanks, I don't really read fan serials or fan continuations or anything, so that really wouldn't matter to me. And if there wants to be a giant flame war on BZ Power over this, so be it. But I'm kind of neutral on it. I can understand where you're coming from, though, and I'm sure there's a ton of other fans, Irrational Rock, who would have the same concerns as you're having right now. But I'm not one of them. And there you have it, folks. That was episode 3 of BIONICOMM. I hope you guys have enjoyed the new format. I'm trying to keep it a little bit quicker, a little bit more precise, and not ramble on so much. It is basically news, a little story from me, and then some comments from you guys. And I would love to see more comments from you guys. Not just comments, but stories, suggestions, ideas, news, whatever. Send them to bionicommepodcast@gmail.com. And, of course, thank you guys for watching. You can leave reviews on iTunes. If you're listening on iTunes, please do leave me some 5-star reviews. Ignore that grammar there. No need to take a star off for the poor grammar. And, of course, leave comments, thumbs ups on the YouTubes. And I will see you guys in episode 4 once we have some more exciting news. If you like gaming, go check out youtube.com and then just type in Cub Games, because the URL is Brashiat Cub. And I don't expect you to know how to spell that. So if you just go to youtube.com, or in the description of this video, link over to my gaming channel. I'm doing some fun stuff with Sky Factory right now. And boom, there you go. Shameless self-promotion out of the way. See you guys next time.